Hi guys, and welcome to this next lesson. We're going to be laying some colour over the initial sort of basis that we created, the sort of monochrome from the previous lesson today. So I'm going to make a new layer, and we can use a pretty big brush. So going back to our big painting brush, and we'll start with a kind of greeny, bluey sort of green for the background. And the layer, we want to make the layer a multiply. Then for the bottom, we can go for a kind of bluey, this sort of bluey green color for her clothing to start with. And we're just doing these as kind of washed passes. They can like layer mix over the top of each other. We don't have to be too fussy about it. Maybe going a little bit more yellow, a little bit lighter for certain parts of the coat. Even a little bit lighter, a bit more yellow yet. Yeah, that's starting to look kind of nice. A bit more golden where it's near her face as well, which adds a little bit of interest. And then for her hair, we can kind of take a more chestnutty colour. Let's wash that. I can wash that over pretty heavily, kind of just generally over where her hair is. And then go a little bit lighter. The highlights of it. And start washing maybe a little bit of a pink shift. Let's go a bit bigger as well. Because the thing is, we're working across the whole, like we're not going to be altering what's underneath in terms of shapes, which is what's nice about this process. So it's a bit like watercolor, but you can do it with a lot more, you can be a lot more carefree, because with watercolor you can't go back and kind of edit things. It's a lot more unforgiving, but here we can sort of play around with, maybe going a bit more yellow down the side of the face. Got the kind of more deeper orangey lip color as well. And try out some little bits of reds around her nose as well. So the nose, she's sort of obviously outdoors in the scene. So the nose is a bit more orangey red. A little bit of redness through some cheeks, kind of around the eyes a bit as well. Can flip upside down, that sometimes helps. And then let's take, so go back to more of a neutrally sort of colour, maybe a bit more yellowish, just to get in the whites of her eyes and the lid side. Can throw some, play around with some little highlights in some of these colours. As I say, because we can just, lay back over. So if I don't like that highlight, just pop some more of a warmer colour down over it. If that's too yellow, shift to more of a red. I am making the effort to kind of individually mix the colours. You could obviously, if you wanted to be really quick about it, you could maybe pick your colours from the source material. But I think I would recommend it being a better exercise if you're kind of trying to pick your colours yourself. And it just affords a little bit more freedom as well, like you're not so locked into like one particular look. Can maybe do with that just being a touch more orangey, her lips. And then a little bit of a highlight on those. We can boost the chroma a little bit around the tip of her nose as well at the same time. It's actually quite close to the lip colour. Not completely, obviously, but it's not far off. A little bit of redness around her eyes as well. And then more of a glow, using a bit of a smaller brush here, sort of underneath her neck there. Can start to kind of build out her chin form a little bit. Apologies for my dog barking in the background there. Don't think it's at anything, but I'll just go and check. And we'll pop a little bit of a kind of glazy colour down. So I go back to a sort of darker green and start to build something of a glow in her irises. So maybe just a bit more of a colour. So what we're working towards is just, there's a bit of a kind of like upward light in her irises, and then you can pop some pupils in. And then take so we're going to make a new layer, put some highlights over this. So we've got the highlight on the inner corner of the eye, which should also be next to a more red sort of tear duct. And then highlight around about the pupil, and a similar highlight on the other side. We've got our I won't go too big on the highlight on the nose actually. So you see that kind of adds just a little bit more life to it. Let's hop back down to this layer. And I want to just do a little bit of a pass, just adding a bit more colour into the lit side. It sort of has a little bit of a kind of washed out feel, which would be good to kind of reduce, I think. Just before we stop for today. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good spot to stop for today. So we've got some colour masked over. Do a little bit of a rewatch again, time-lapse replay, so we'll go back from the kind of complete piece. So this was that first kind of monochrome block-in that we did last week, using just quick sketching tools, then just using bigger and smaller paintbrushes to erase and add. And then today we've just gone in and we've added some colour to that. Sort of got a good kind of colour base to work from. So next week we can start painting kind of directly over this. So rather than it being a glaze, we'll actually start kind of messing around with rendering some forms, altering forms and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's it for this week's lesson. So it just sort of consolidates that initial colour block in into one lesson. Then next week we'll be going in and kind of developing this and, you know, making it feel a bit more rendered. So yeah, that's it for this week's lesson. As always, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments and I'll get to them when I can. If you want to see more videos from myself, other tutors and students from the school, you can follow us, so just click subscribe. And if you want to see the sorts of paid qualifications we offer, you can click the link in the description through to our website and see what's there. So yeah, that's it for this week and I'll see you guys soon.